readers. Welcome to the Bookwyrm's Lair. I'm Jane Grey, the Book Witch, and oh, Shantaea's garters, I'm beat. You see, the reason why I planned 5 weeks of this holiday is because that's technically how the holiday season goes for me. It's not unlike very old Christian practices in your world. That means that by the time the beginning of the year and the end of the winter holidays rolls around, some of us are just exhausted. I was supposed to review another book, but I just can't. The neurons just aren't firing. Add to that the pre-recorded nature of this episode, and why bother? It's just not happening.
You have to do something, Jane. It's in your contract.
Screw my contract. I'm gonna catch some shut-eye before I have to hike to the stacks. Later. Okay, unscrew my contract. This is The Queen's Christmas by Karen Harper. The tale is another mystery with a historical figure for a sleuth. This time, Queen Elizabeth I, daughter of King Henry VIII and his second wife and queen, Anne Boleyn, and one of the most famous and controversial ladies of her day. The tale takes place in her dazzling Enderbayne court during the 12 days of Christmas, a holiday period spanning from December 25th to January 5th, full of reveling and merriment, or at least it was. Elizabeth is looking forward to the feasting with glee, but her court's political and religious squabbling is putting a damper on the good cheer. Puritanism is on the rise, and she's deliberately setting aside laws that her father and younger brother Edward set down before her. One of her bishops and his aide even complains that snowball fights are profane and sacrilegious. But Elizabeth isn't having any of it. She declares that it's only a test run, and if the Christmas season comes off well, then the laws will be abolished. There's another problem, though. Elizabeth's favorite at court, Robin Dudley, has been made the Earl of Leicester and is getting a little too uppity around court. She's tried to get him married off to her cousin, Mary Queen of Scots, but she won't have him. What's more, Robin wrote to her and said he wasn't worthy to marry her behind Elizabeth's back. One of Mary's ambassadors at the English court, Simon McNair, even lets it slip. The rumors say he's put the little painting of Elizabeth in his hallway and keeps a bigger one in his room. So the two of them have a lover's tiff, and she makes Robin the Lord of Misrule, which means he's made an ass of himself in private, and now he can do it in public. Cattiness at its finest! Christmas Eve, Elizabeth is handing out Christmas gifts to her staff, when it's noticed that Hodge Thatcher, dresser of her privy kitchen, is missing. Assuming he's decorating the roast peacock for dinner, she goes with her master cook to see if he's okay, only to discover him dead, hung, and draped with the peacock's skin and feathers. The details of the murder have intriguing implications. Robin Dudley's nickname at court is the Peacock, and it definitely rings as a ghoulish political statement. At first, it's implied to be a suicide, brought on by a letter from his father disowning him. But then, why drape himself in a peacock skin? Elizabeth is determined to get to the bottom of the matter with the help of a small group she calls her Privy Plot Council. They go to a boathouse on the Thames where the body is being kept. He can't be in a church because people think he killed himself, which is sin. When they check the body closer, they find that someone has knocked him out, though no one can tell with what. Any further investigation, however, is brought to a screeching halt by the fact that they've been locked in the boathouse and it's being burned down. Thankfully, Elizabeth and her friends escape alive, but the arsonist escapes without a trace. Things only get more strained when her Bishop Grindal makes a sermon the next morning, decrying both beloved Christmas traditions of the day and hinting that the murder was some kind of pagan sacrifice. What? That's balloon juice! Okay, maybe human sacrifice was done once upon a time, but with peacock skins? I want to see his bibliography on that. What god would you even sacrifice peacocks to? Okay, I mean, Hera was...
Jane, your train of thought is derailing!
Oh, right! Book! Fingers are beginning to point everywhere at suspects, because a queen like Elizabeth is always in danger of assassination. The warnings keep trickling in as a mysterious boy leaves a gift for her, 12 stones for murdering martyrs. One has even been covered in gold leaf. Even the boar's head isn't spared, being replaced with a fox's head, its snout covered in gold foil. And Queen Elizabeth I was notorious for her red hair, like a fox's fur. What's interesting to me is the research by the author into the holiday as it was in Elizabethan England. Each clue is pointedly related to one of the traditions surrounding the 12 days of Christmas. The stones and the fox are a particularly obscure but relevant example. The royalty of England went fox hunting on St. Stephen's Day, a saint who was martyred by being stoned to death. But nowhere is the research more apparent than in the recipes that head each chapter. Everything used is from the period. Food, sweets, drinks, even medicines and herbal concoctions used in the home. I wouldn't recommend trying some of them, but I blame that on the difference in palates between then and now. If you're a history nerd or just an adventurous eater, you may want to give some of it a shot, though. We'll get back to the mystery right after the break. I'm hungry now. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. There's a cup of wassail with our name on it. We're back. And we're never drinking that stuff again. We're roughly midway into the story, and the city is preparing for a New Year's frost fair. These rare events are held when the tideway of the Thames River freezes over, which, as of this review, hasn't happened since 1814. While there is currently a revival, there haven't been any out on the ice since then. While out riding on the ice with Robin, Elizabeth spots Simon McNair studying a hole in the palace foundations. The stones sent to her appear to have come from there, and she's quickly reminded that McNair's queen is Mary Stuart, her rival, and perhaps she should be suspicious of him. That evening, the Feast of Fools is celebrated. Bishop Grindel's aide, Vicar Bane, is there briefly, but goes away sulking at the masquerades and tomfoolery. Eventually, a bunch of knights in full helmets show up and carol the queen, while sword fighting and acting like a bunch of frat boys. One of them pulls out a pair of dolls, clearly meant to be Elizabeth and Robin, and makes them appear to be making out, or worse. Thinking Robin is to blame, she orders him detained and goes looking for him later, only to find him hog-tied with a noose around his neck and an apple in his mouth like a suckling pig. 2 signs are found with him as well, proclaiming him Yule Fool and Roast-Sucking-Up Boar. For the first time all season, Elizabeth cancels a traditional hunt, not wanting any more disasters, even though Robin is saved. Even her most trusted friends and counselors are looking like suspects now. The paper signs carry a watermark, however, that points to Vicar Bane, and are unusually scented for a clergyman's stationery. The scent eventually points to the palace chandlery, where scented candles and torches are made for the holidays. Vicar Bane apparently doesn't like scented candles, but does like them to be dyed blood red, and comes to pick them up himself. Says he likes the feel of the place. The chandlery is full of boiling vats, like an image of hell. He sat there a few days before, writing at the head chandler's table. New Year's Eve rolls around, and with it a lavishly described but uneventful feast, finishing with a sleight of hand performance by McNair, finished with a presentation of 2 miniature portraits of Elizabeth and her cousin Mary. As cute and flattering as the performance is, the portrait of Elizabeth is noticeably less flattering than Mary's, clearly a slight by the artist and maybe the giver. But as everyone goes to watch the fireworks after the gift exchange, another gift appears, with no giver. It's a set of lovely but heavy silver cups, one of which is stained with blood, and looks to be the implement used to knock out Hodge Thatcher. The next day, Elizabeth learns that fireworks blew holes in the ice, and there have been accidents all day. And it seems that Vicar Bane has been the victim of a similar mishap, as he's found frozen and dead in a horse trough. Vicar Bane appears to have killed himself and confesses to the crimes. But the idea that a vicar would kill himself is preposterous to Elizabeth, especially one as sanctimoniously obnoxious as Bane. More threats appear, including one in the pie meant to hold doves, which instead holds a doll of the Queen with ass's ears. A recipe for Christmas pancakes is perverted into a mockery of Humpty Dumpty. And then a friend, sent away for safety, is nearly burned to death in protective custody. And now we come to the part of the show where our culprit is revealed. You know what to do. If you still want to read this book, mute the sound until the video comes back. The murderer and prankster is McNair. Insulted by Elizabeth's treatment of her rival queen, he hates Christmas, having worked in palace kitchens many a season under his overbearing father as a youth. He has been plotting to kill Elizabeth so her cousin can take the throne of England. He attacks Robin, then Elizabeth, but she ultimately fights him off, drowning him in the same hole in the river he planned to drown her in. This book is a breathtaking ending to my holiday season. It felt a touch cluttered in places, and there's a B-plot that makes no sense if you haven't read the previous books. Eventually, I'll review the first in the series, but the descriptions and the portrayals of courtly life in Elizabeth's early reign are beautiful. And Elizabeth herself is portrayed as being very human, hot-headed, spiteful, and in love, but forced to keep it all hidden for the sake of her country's stability. I give this one a blue star. I recommend it to anybody who loves that period, but I'd read the earlier books first for context. Whew. Well, that's the end of the 5 weeks of Christmas. Even when I get back from the stacks, I'm gonna need a little break. Until we meet again, fair readers, Happy New Year. I'm Jane Grey, wishing you a good book to curl up with.